Collusion. We just did a few great panels on all things Trump, Russia. And I want to ask Luke a few questions about his wonderful book Collusion that I really recommend everybody should read to understand what is going on. So Luke, could you please tell the general public and the Russian propaganda YouTube channel audience why you think your book should be read?
Well, I think it's a useful guide to the chaos and craziness that we've been seeing over the last couple of years. And I wrote this book. I started researching it in 2016, trying to answer a simple question, which is how do you explain Donald Trump's strange fascination with Vladimir Putin and his kind of niceness to Putin when he's so kind of rude about everybody else. And I think what we've seen over the last kind of tumultuous period is we've seen a dossier by Christopher Steele, whom I met, former British intelligence officer, which alleges the Kremlin has been cultivating Donald Trump for a long time. And we've seen the sort of one theme throughout his presidency, which has been consistent, has been his almost obeisance towards Putin. Most recently in Helsinki, where he was asked point blank whether he would condemn or acknowledge that Russia had hacked the 2016 election, and he was incapable of doing so, which was kind of really a breathtaking moment. And I think we have a situation where Russia has successfully hijacked American democracy, is trying to subvert other countries around the world, including the UK, my country, Europe, instrumentalizing the far right and the far left, and using kind of traditional classic KGB techniques to kind of foster political division, which is not to say that these problems didn't exist anyway, because a lot of them did, but to kind of exploit them. And so I think we're in a really kind of precarious situation, and we have a president of the United States who is beholden to Vladimir Putin, and whose links with Moscow, which I try and explain in my book, go back 30 years. Financial, sexual, we think. I find the compromat allegations in Christopher Steele's dossier to be convincing. And what I tried to write in my book is a compelling non-fiction thriller, which has got all the pace and verve of a spy book, but which actually, depressingly, is completely true and scary as well.
That's great. I think you really succeeded in that. I read your book twice and I still find it very useful. How would you end up your book now with all the latest developments, knowing what just happened with Manafort development and Cohen development?
Well, I mean, actually, I think my book bears up quite well. I mean, since I wrote, I have a whole chapter in Manafort. Since then, of course, Manafort has been convicted of 8 counts of bank and tax fraud. Michael Cohen, Trump's personal lawyer, has flipped and is now saying he's going to cooperate with Robert Mueller. And you almost get the sense that when I started writing, the fire was in the kind of White House shrubbery. And now the fire is coming closer across the lawn and heading towards the West Wing. Now Trump is still there, he's still tweeting. But however much just by saying this is all fake, it's a witch hunt, it's collusion, Christopher Steele is discredited, that doesn't make it so. He can repeat these things, but they lack conviction. And Trump's own relationship to Russia and to Putin is still extremely strange. And so I think we're in the realm of politics. Clearly, there's a question of impeachment hanging over Donald Trump. If I were to update my book or to write another one, that would be part of the kind of chapter. But I think what's happened in the last few weeks is that we've moved from the abstract to the concrete. We've moved from what you might call the sort of stuff of partisan politics to the unforgiving realm of the courtroom, where real people, Trump's campaign manager, Trump's personal lawyer, are going to jail for long periods of time. And this is no longer kind of contested or fake or fictional. This is actually people going to jail on the basis of evidence. So I think things are very serious for Donald Trump. I also think that Trump may be there a long time. It would be crazy to write him off. But this is clearly the biggest political crisis of modern times, certainly of modern US political history. And I think Putin is ascendant, which is not to say that he is all powerful. He's not Batman, but he's an opportunist, and he is very, very successfully managed to exploit the fissures in Western society to his own advantage.
This is the channel that deals mostly with Russian propaganda and trying to debunk it and explain it.
Yeah.
I know there's an aspect to your book in that respect. Would you comment on that?
Well, my book is true. It's actually, and I think in our troubled times you need good method. In other words, I spoke to lots of sources, I cross-verified, I dug up notebooks of conversations I'd had with Paul Manafort back in 2007 and actually kind of retranscribed. I'd forgotten what he told me, but there it all was. And I think good method is important because what you're dealing with is sort of machines, state machines, in Russia, but not only in Russia, where the idea is to basically confuse people by pumping out all sorts of fake stories, by making counter-accusations, by denying. And the method here is to create sort of hermeneutic confusion, so no one can believe anything anymore. And so you don't believe politicians, they're all liars. You don't believe your own institutions. And the reason that Putin is sort of spraying nihilism everywhere, if you like, is just so Russia can do its sovereign thing unchallenged in the way that a great power might behave in the 19th century. And what I find slightly depressing is that certain people on the left, the American left, the British left, the European left, and certain people on the far right kind of believe this. There is nothing more virtuous or noble or progressive about the Russia of Vladimir Putin in 2018. It is not progressive. It's an ultra-right state with a kind of pseudo-ideology of conservative orthodoxy and anti-gay and so on. But actually what you have to remember is that the people at the top of the Russian state, who by the way are mostly former spies, KGB spies, are all billionaires. And they are laughing at the kind of useful idiots out there who kind of buy their propaganda. Meanwhile, while they get richer and richer and richer.
Well, that's excellent. And I usually try and end on a positive note and being practical. And what is the concrete step that each individual citizen, each person can take in this current situation?
Well, we need to, first of all, support and fund news, buy newspapers, subscribe to the Guardian or the New York Times or whatever. We need to stay optimistic, we need to stay cheerful, we need to stay civil. This is an age, an epoch of incivility, and I think we should try and be nice to each other, banal though that seems. And I think we should just keep faith that actually we, by which I mean kind of reasonable people from all over the world, can prevail against these populist forces, these nativist forces, and against external manipulation of our democracy by malign actors, whether it's Russia or rich people or unscrupulous American billionaires, because they've been involved as well. And that we can have a kind of second enlightenment. The last enlightenment was a long time ago. I think our 21st century is ripe for another enlightenment, and I would just invite all of your viewers to kind of join me, us in that project.